We've always sold implementations as one-off projects, right?
Now the agent itself becomes a living service we monitor, retrain, and audit every month.
So the real profit driver shifts from seats to continuous agent ops.
Exactly. Think tiered health dashboards, tuning sprints, and compliance audits as a subscription stack.
Welcome to this deep dive. If you're listening to this, you are likely, an executive level CRM, AI, or platform professional.
Right.
And you know that to survive in this ecosystem, you need to understand how these architectures actually operate under the hood, like far past the glossy vendor marketing narratives.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you just read the standard vendor documentation, you're missing this really quiet transition where the single implementation fee effectively dies.
Completely.
Yeah, it's replaced entirely by an operations-first subscription model.
Which is exactly why our mission today is to unpack this massive architectural and financial shift. We're looking at the raw operational reality of AI agent health, tuning, and compliance tiers.
And more importantly, how you can leverage those exact mechanics to build a recurring revenue, high-margin service practice.
Right. And, this is why you really need to subscribe to the CRM Position podcast if you want to stay ahead of real architectural shifts.
Not just the marketing hype.
Exactly. If you want complex platform dynamics broken down without the fluff, and if you're tired of just buying into what the billboards say, this is where you get the actual blueprint. So hit subscribe because we are getting straight into how this ecosystem is basically rewiring itself.
Yeah, let's look at the baseline reality of this new model. We're dealing with what is essentially a three-tier stack.
Okay.
And this isn't theoretical. This is how the most profitable partner firms are restructuring their master service agreements right now.
Right. So let's unpack those tiers because the
Yeah.
moment you move away from billing for seats or, basic configuration hours, you have to justify a recurring premium.
Exactly. So the first tier is agent health. Now, we aren't talking about basic uptime pinging here.
Right, because an AI agent doesn't just go down the way a server does.
Exactly. It grades.
Yeah.
So this tier is a real-time telemetry dashboard.
Hmm.
You're monitoring like token consumption rates, response latency, and semantic similarity to golden data sets.
Got it.
You're basically selling the client instant, transparent visibility into the cognitive health of their routing systems.
Which I imagine seamlessly requires the second tier, right? Agent tuning. Because if your health dashboard shows that semantic accuracy is slipping, you have to actually fix it.
Precisely, because the underlying architecture is incredibly sensitive to environment changes.
Sure.
Like if a client acquires a new company or changes a return policy or updates a product line, the agent's context window and the retrieval augmented generation, the RAG architecture,
Is suddenly misaligned.
yeah, totally misaligned.
Okay.
So agent tuning involves structured monthly model retraining sprints to realign that underlying logic with the evolving business reality.
Okay, so that's health and tuning. And then there's the third tier, agent compliance.
Right. And this isn't like a quarterly review. We're talking about continuous auditing of the prompt libraries against strict regulatory rule sets.
Because you can't have an agent offering unauthorized discounts or, hallucinating legal terms just because a user structured a clever prompt.
Exactly.
Looking at this entire stack, the shift in the business model is profound. We used to be the general contractors building the factory, handing over the keys, and walking away.
Right.
But now it's like we're charging a massive premium to run the telemetry on the factory floor, operating the safety valves, and guaranteeing the assembly line doesn't start producing cars with 3 wheels.
That's a great way to put it.
We're monetizing the ongoing stability of a chaotic system. But wait, if we're taking on the responsibility of operating that system, how do we price it without completely eating our own margins when things get complicated?
Well, you leverage 3 very specific pricing mechanics that are fundamentally reshaping enterprise contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You don't charge for the time, you charge for the outcome. So the first lever is predictive SLA contracts. You transition to usage-based pricing tied to granular service level objectives.
Like what?
Like you're putting a financial guarantee on, say, 99.5% intent accuracy and sub-2-second response latency.
Okay, wait. Guaranteeing 99.5% intent accuracy on a generative system is, that's a massive liability.
Yes.
If we're signing contracts with those kinds of predictive SLAs, we're taking on the financial risk if the foundation model suddenly acts up. If accuracy drops to 90%, our margins are wiped out by SLA credits.
Which is exactly why the market created the second revenue lever. Data drift insurance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a high-margin risk transfer product built right into the contract.
How does that actually work under the hood? I mean, practically speaking.
Well, think about the mechanics of data drift. Say your health telemetry detects the vector distance between the agent's responses and the verified knowledge base is widening. The model is drifting. Its confidence scores are dropping. Now, instead of the partner eating the cost of an emergency fix, the data drift insurance automatically triggers and funds a remediation sprint.
Ah,
The client pays a premium for the insurance, which protects them from sudden pipeline loss while creating a highly predictable, recurring income stream for the partner firm to maintain the system.
that is brilliant. It's essentially packaging the maintenance contract and warranty into a single proactive service tier. The system detects its own failure and basically funds its own repair.
Exactly. And the third lever operationalizes that entire relationship. It's called AOaaS, or Agent Ops as a Service.
Okay.
Partners aren't just sending monthly reports anymore. They're deploying white label portals directly on the app exchange. These portals act as an API gateway between the client and the LLM.
So the client isn't pinging the LLM directly at all.
Right. The portal sits in the middle, leveraging metered billing through Flex credits. It keeps the partner in absolute control of the prompt routing and the model stack while giving the client this fully branded, transparent operations hub.
Oh.
Yeah, it locks in the partnership at the infrastructure level.
So shifting from build to operate clearly unlocks these massive recurring revenue streams. But like you mentioned, it means absorbing the long-term operational risk.
Definitely.
If we're sitting in the middle of the API gateway, we are holding the bag when the system breaks. And these systems definitely break.
Oh, they do.
So let's look at the real stakes here. Walk me through what happens when this subscription model fails in a live enterprise environment.
Well, the stakes are entirely different from legacy software because live autonomous systems fail in uniquely destructive ways.
Right.
Let's look at the first major failure mode, the undetected drift. Imagine a scenario where the vendor pushes an upstream update to the underlying LLM. It's not a version change. It's a subtle adjustment to the model's weights.
Which, I mean, happens constantly behind the scenes.
Constantly. But the result of this specific update is that the agent starts misinterpreting subtle buying signals. Lead qualification accuracy drops by 12% over 10 days.
A 12% drop in enterprise lead qualification isn't just a technical glitch. That translates to millions of dollars in pipeline bleeding out, just vanishing into the ether.
Exactly. And the critical failure here isn't that the model drifted. I mean, drift is inevitable.
Right.
The failure is that the partner's agent health dashboard wasn't calibrated to catch that specific semantic shift. The alert didn't fire.
Wow.
So the drift goes undetected for weeks. The client loses massive revenue, the partner completely fails their predictive SLA, and the trust is broken. You promised to monitor the safety valves, then...
And you were looking at the wrong gauge.
Exactly.
So that's what happens when the monitoring tier fails. But what happens when the compliance tier itself causes the crash?
That leads to the second failure mode, the infinite loop.
Hmm.
And this is a governance nightmare. In a large enterprise, you have a federated model. So you have an agent compliance module running for the sales department and a completely separate one running for customer service.
Different departments, different prompt libraries.
Exactly. Now, imagine a scenario where a marketing admin updates a promotional prompt that inadvertently contradicts a strict routing rule in the service agent's library. A customer query hits the system that triggers both rules simultaneously.
It's like two algorithmic trading bots caught in a flash crash.
That's the perfect analogy. The sales agent tries to route the case to a promotional flow, but the service agent's compliance guardrail intercepts it and routes it back.
Wow.
So the agents get stuck passing the exact same case back and forth in milliseconds. They're effectively launching a denial-of-service attack on their own infrastructure.
Wait, so a localized prompt conflict between two departments can effectively paralyze the client's entire global routing system?
Yes.
The blast radius is network-wide.
State paralysis. And because it's a logic loop, the automated fail-safes often can't resolve it. The system is functioning exactly as it was instructed. It's just following contradictory instructions.
That is wild.
So the partner has to manually step in, sever the API connection, halt the routing, and reconcile the prompt libraries line by line.
That brings a whole new level of risk. You're building a machine that can literally argue with itself until the business grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
So what's the third failure mode we're seeing out in the wild?
The privacy breach. And this happens when your compliance tier fails to keep up with regulatory reality. Let's say a new GDPR amendment takes effect regarding strict data masking for European users.
But the partner fails to flush the prompt cache and update the dynamic guardrails in the agent compliance tier.
Exactly. The agent is doing exactly what it was trained to do last month. It pulls a customer record to summarize an account history, and because the masking rule wasn't refreshed, it unintentionally includes PII in an outbound email to a third-party vendor.
A generative system leaking PII at scale. The fallout from that isn't just a missed SLA metric. I mean, that's an existential threat.
It exposes the client to devastating regulatory fines. And here's where the partner model bites back. Because you hold the AOaaS contract, because you're metering the flex credits and controlling the stack, that liability flows directly back to you.
Ouch.
A single missed compliance refresh can completely exhaust a partner firm's liability insurance and wipe out years of accumulated margin.
Okay, so if the MD is signing off on that kind of financial risk where a single prompt conflict can take down global routing or, a cache rule can wipe out our liability insurance, we obviously can't manage this with the old playbook.
And not at all.
The legacy build team org chart, like the traditional developers and admins who hand over a project and move on, that structure will not survive the ops era. We need a completely different blueprint for accountability.
You cannot manage a living risk matrix with a project timeline mentality. The enterprises that are successfully navigating this are implementing a very specific four-step operational framework. It's a rigid accountability matrix designed to catch these failure modes before they detonate.
Let's walk through that framework. If we're taking over operations, how do we actually structure the team to run this safely?
Step 1 is pricing and SLAs. The design of these contracts can no longer sit with a traditional project manager. Your revenue operations lead must define the predictive metrics.
Like the sub 2-second latency or the 99.5% intent accuracy we talked about.
Exactly. They have to map the exact threshold where SLA credits trigger. But the ultimate accountability for those financial guarantees sits directly with the managing director.
Which makes sense. If you are guaranteeing an outcome, you need executive skin in the game. The MD owns the margin risk.
Right.
So if the MD owns the risk, who is actually on the ground making sure the model doesn't drift and bleed that margin?
That's step 2. Drift monitoring implementation. This is the tactical execution of the telemetry dashboards. This sits entirely with the AI ops engineers reporting up to an AI ops manager. Their sole job is to monitor vector distances and hallucination rates to prevent that 12% pipeline drop we saw earlier. And crucially, they operate as a nexus.
Meaning they don't work in a silo.
Exactly. They have to actively consult with the platform's core product team, your internal compliance lead, and the client's IT department.
And what about the governance side? How do we structurally prevent the infinite loop scenario where prompts tear each other apart?
Step 3 is prompt version control. You cannot have 5 different departments updating system prompts casually. You establish a dedicated prompt engineering lead.
Okay.
They take absolute centralized charge of all library versions across the federated model. They act as the final gatekeeper. They report directly to the partner CTO, and they are required to consult with legal and governance teams before any new prompt logic is pushed to the live production environment.
Got it. They are the air traffic controller for the prompt libraries.
Yes.
And step 4, what's the protocol for when the system inevitably breaches an SLA?
Step 4 is breach remediation. When latency spikes to 5 seconds or accuracy drops and a client demands a credit, it does not go to a technical team. It goes to the customer success manager.
The CSM.
Right. The CSM handles the issuance of those SLA credits, accountable to the COO. They manage the client relationship while keeping finance and the platform support teams tightly in the loop to control the margin erosion. And they initiate the data drift insurance claim if applicable.
What really stands out to me looking at this matrix is the absolute evolution of the talent pool. The people holding the bag for enterprise performance aren't called admins or developers anymore.
Nope.
They have titles like prompt engineering lead and AI ops manager.
It's a hard pivot to an ops-first model. The traditional billable hour curve for basic implementation is flattening rapidly.
Yeah.
We're reaching a point where these agents can basically self-service their own routine configurations.
And that flattening is having massive second-order effects on the partner ecosystem itself, like the architecture of the entire industry is splitting.
We are seeing a layered partner-to-partner marketplace emerge. You have large infrastructure firms that exclusively manage the AOaaS portals and the overarching monitoring stack. And then you have them subcontracting the actual model retraining sprints to highly specialized boutique prompt tuning shops.
Which brings us to the strategic implication of all this, a dynamic surfacing as we look toward 2026. If the traditional implementation work is drying up, we're seeing firms pivot to what's being called the pure ops play.
Yes, the thesis is that partners should abandon the legacy implementation consulting model entirely. You become a pure AI agent operations firm.
Oh.
The strategy dictates that the only sustainable business moat is to build a proprietary telemetry stack that firmly locks clients into these continuous high-margin monitoring and tuning subscriptions.
And the execution of this strategy is where the ecosystem is fiercely debating capital allocation and client lock-in. I mean, in the source material, it outlines a specific tactic where partners intentionally limit the scope of the initial agent deployments. They deploy a very narrow, highly constrained agent on day one, essentially guaranteeing a steady, multi-year stream of downstream tuning sprints as the client wants to expand the agent's capabilities.
Are we just engineering artificial bottlenecks to force a subscription dependency here?
It's a fair question. Proponents of the pure ops play argue it's not a manufactured dependency, it's necessary risk mitigation.
How so?
You do not deploy an unconstrained LLM across an entire enterprise on day one, because that's how you trigger the catastrophic infinite loops and privacy breaches we just discussed. They argue that deploying a narrow agent allows for safe, incremental tuning based on actual, real-world data drift.
So it's a debate over architecture. You either build a massive, risky system upfront, or you build a tiny, safe system that fundamentally requires the client to pay for endless tuning sprints to get the value they initially wanted.
Regardless of how you view the strategy, the structural reality remains the same. The margins are in the operations, not the initial build.
Right. The client is locked into the tuning and compliance subscription because the system cannot function without it.
We have moved from selling a static product to selling a living ecosystem that demands constant telemetry. If you're an executive listening to this, you have to adapt your organization to this reality today. So let's close out with 3 concrete actions you need to take this week.
Action 1. Audit your current partner master service agreements. You need to identify exactly how you are billing or being billed.
Right.
If your compensation is still tied to static seat counts or configuration hours, you are severely misaligned. You need to transition to predictive SLAs. Look for specific usage-based metrics in the contract, like sub 2-second latency and 99.5% intent accuracy.
Action 2. Formalize your accountability matrix immediately. Pull up your org chart. If your routing system goes into an infinite loop today, who is actually authorized to sever the API? You need to explicitly name your prompt engineering lead. You must establish a single point of failure for version control. If you don't have that name and that protocol formally documented, you are flying blind.
And Action 3. Review your liability insurance policies alongside your data masking rules. You need explicit confirmation that your policies cover generative AI exposures.
Yes.
If a prompt cache isn't flushed following a GDPR amendment and your agent leaks PII, you need to know exactly how your insurance interacts with your agent compliance tier failures.
We started this deep dive talking about the factory. We are no longer the contractors handing over the keys. We are the infrastructure operators guaranteeing the reactor doesn't melt down.
Which leaves us with one final layer to consider, and it's something not fully resolved in the current contracts.
What's
If you are constantly tuning an agent, refining its tone, adjusting its logic, and optimizing its RGAG architecture month after month, who ultimately owns the intellectual property of that agent's persona? Are you just operating a machine for the client, or are you effectively ghostwriting their entire brand intelligence?
That is a fascinating architectural question to leave on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on the CRM Position podcast. Stay sharp, review those SLA contracts, and we will catch you next time.